when you're in writers' meetings or script meetings, these are the kinds of things you talk about. The A storyline is clearly Charlie Leach returns. Charlie Leach is going to bust them. Charlie Leach is going to bribe them. The B storyline is Endora believing that Darren is a philanderer. They would put him in curls like almost all day to have it ready to take out, I guess, at dinner time or wherever. Bill Asher gave me the original script, the pilot script, that he told me was the only one that exists. That Endora's name was based on the Witch of Endor from the Old Testament in the Bible.
Bewitched, bewitched, you've got me in your spell.
Let's chat about Bewitched. We're going back to season 2 here, to one of my favorite reoccurring storylines that for some reason they dropped. I kind of get why they did. We can talk about that a little bit. But this is a Charlie Leach episode. You can't tell right now at the very beginning. But as I mentioned before, I really like these little beginnings that really have nothing to do with the price of tea in China, where you kind of get a little glimpse into the life of Samantha and Darren. So they're just playing out this little scene here, and there she is in her sexy nightgown again, where Darren's snoring. And really, this entire opening before the credits, which is rather long, just has nothing to do with the episode at all. They're just kind of establishing who they are in their marriage, and that they're regular folk, and that Samantha sleeps in very dense, long, false eyelashes. You probably, again, if you're new, I'm watching it in that monitor while you're watching it in this one. I don't know how well you can tell this, but if you watch it on your big screen, and especially if, as I've mentioned and recommended, you get a Roku where you can watch it for free in high definition. You just really see these little things. But keep in mind, when this was originally broadcast in 1968, which I'll give you a little more details here, just really bad reception. Almost most people, broadcast television, black and white, rabbit ear antennas. Very happy when you get a decent signal and a decent sound. And really, it was that way back then. Just decent was good enough. We are so spoiled these days with cable, even with streaming, and amazingly how far it's come where you can stream something in high definition, like with no problem at all. But if you remember the early days of streaming, when there was a lag and the quality could drop to low and to high and to low and to high, if you're not old enough to remember or live back then, before cable, I should say, that's really what it was like. It was just, you were lucky to get a decent picture. So we're just spoiled, and certainly watching it here in really clearness. And it wasn't like that back then. And I just say that because when you look at the eyelashes and maybe the extra heavy makeup and all the jokes of, oh yeah, people went to bed like that, it just wasn't clear enough back then to see how it really was. All right, so let's talk about this episode. So while they're rolling the credits, this is called The Catnapper. Charlie Leach returns. Love the Charlie Leach storylines. I think because just by default, there has to be a lot of magic in the Charlie Leach episodes, because, of course, he has to bust her for something. And, of course, I just love the more magic, the better for me. Of course, you can't overdo it, but, hey, with me, you can't really anyway. Okay, Agnes is about to appear. Before we do, season 2, episode 35 in season 2. This is the 71st episode they've ever made. Where's the hot nightgown? Now she's in the frumpy whatever thingy. Anyway, 71st episode they ever made. They filmed it on March 24th, 1966. So we're in 1966. They filmed it in March. It was broadcast May 19th, 1966. So March, April, May. So within 2 months of shooting this, it was on the air. All right, so here we're still kind of just the normal life of the Stevens, but uh-oh, there he is. The bad guy, the private eye, the private investigator, Charlie Leach, who has been and will be probably, I'm assuming that because he's so reoccurring at this point, that they had plans. But also when you think about it, how much can you really reoccur that storyline? But here is what I suspect. I don't know exactly when Mrs. Kravitz number one passed away, but I'll bet by now they know something's up. So you need that nosy mortal who sees things and thinks they see things and thinks they don't, and just that whole back and forth of the, butting it up to Samantha's witchcraft. And I just suspect, I don't know this at all, that he was meant to be the Gladys Kravitz-ish replacement. Just a guess. But let's go back to the episode because I love this. Again, here, always super cool when Endora goes, bam. She actually says, let's dress to the nines. Samantha says, let's go shopping. And she's like, let's dress to the nines. And now Charlie Leach is saying, oh, they're both witches. I'm going to make some money on this. So he already knows that Samantha is now requested his mother. And how much do you love this little whole thing? I love it. I don't know. If you guys are familiar with Broadway, with the stuff that goes on in New York City in terms of plays and musicals, if you've been in high school at all, chances are good you've either seen or been in Guys and Dolls. And this character right here is a total knockover of that. Give me, how's it go? Give me my poils, give me my furs, whatever. That song that she sings. So this is that kind of kooky character. So not very matched as far as I'm concerned, just looking at it. But here's Charlie Leach, the private eye. They are presumably married. I don't know. And she's living in this little apartment, very poor. And he keeps promising he's going to hit it big. He's going to hit it big. Well, now he just sells Samantha, magical Samantha, who he's already tried to tap into with the magical mother. And now he's going to try to tap into her again for all these things. And he's promising Charmaine, right? Isn't that her name? Charmaine. All of these great wealth of gifts just around the corner. There are the curlers again. Again, I talked about this a little bit in the past. We just don't really see that today. But that was super, super common. If you're watching this and saying, what is up with all those curlers things? Back in the 60s, that was very common. That's the way women did their hair. The waves and the curls and the frou-frous were the thing. And they would put them in curls like almost all day to have it ready to take out, I guess, at dinner time or wherever. Okay, here comes Tony Devlin.
Meet Tony Devlin of United Cosmetics.
Now, in the script, this is supposed to be a very beautiful woman. And again, I'm not trying to say negative things or cast aspersions, but I don't know. Just as someone who's directed things before, if I was casting a beautiful woman, even if it's like, but we want a beautiful woman who's professional, I don't know that would be the one I pick because, again, the whole storyline here is that, well, so this is actually very interesting in taking on the misogynistic stance, which they've already addressed in this series. He's putting her arm around her, and she's saying, excuse me, if we're going to have a professional relationship, you don't need to kowtow me. And there he goes oh, well, I'm sorry. And then he says, just so you know, I'm very happily married. To which she should reply, then why are you hugging me? Do you hug your male clients? All right. So Tony Devlin is going to go to lunch with Darren, and Samantha and Endora are going to lunch, and they're going to bust them. And then the storyline begins with Charlie Leach. So I've talked before, it's very interesting when you look at a script, as script writers typically have an A storyline, a B storyline, and then sometimes a C storyline. So the A storyline in this script, and when you're in writers' meetings or script meetings, these are the kinds of things you talk about. The A storyline is clearly Charlie Leach returns. Charlie Leach is going to bust them. Charlie Leach is going to bribe them. The B storyline is Endora believing that Darren is a philanderer. Back to my past episode about they were just so obsessed with affairs and cheating on spouses, something that really bugs me personally. We're not going to get into that again. But here we are again. This is a big part of the storyline. Oh, look, Darren's having an affair with that woman. And there's Endora Agnes, who, if you've seen some things I posted before, was a tough cookie. Not very necessarily easy to work with, and pretty demanding, pretty diva-ish. One of the most fascinating things, if you saw that, it's I don't know, Bewitched. It's a Bewitched, supposed to be Bewitched Secrets 3, but it just talks about the fact that this set was not a very happy set. Lots of blowback, for talking about that, but the reality is it was, and maybe I can talk a little bit about that here. But one of the things that really fascinated me the very first time I saw that interview is the woman. This was done in the '60s during season 4, actually. So when they were shooting season 4, I think it was 3 or 4, and she was interviewing Agnes and asked her, "Do you have to get into character?" And Agnes was, who considers herself this great actress, was almost offended by the question and just, "No, I don't. I know Endora, and I can do Endora. And yes, during the pilot, I created Endora, but no, I don't have to get into character." Well, the reality is, when I first started in Hollywood, um, I did take a couple of real Hollywood professional acting classes. And I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say, I don't care how much you do it, even if you're doing a Broadway show where you're going on 8 times a week, that you never just waltz in there like you're all that and just like you're going to be that great. You always got to take time to get into character and to get in your place and get in your space. Even if you've done it a million times, you just really can't click in and out and be that successful. Having said that, do we think Agnes Moorehead was successful as Endora? Well, of course she was. She was amazing as Endora. So I don't even know if I buy what she said, because I will bet she had to take a moment and get in there. But so I just think that a lot of who we see Endora is in these attitudes is a lot of who really Agnes was. Also crazy, speaking of acting classes, if you saw that, I had never known. And again, I read the book about her, something about the illusion. I talk at one of the Bewitched chats, so you can go back and look. Something about the illusion, her life story. It's not like a great book, but it's a very cool, interesting book to find out about her. That she taught acting classes with students in Hollywood. Can you imagine? And the first thing I thought when I saw that, can you imagine being one of Agnes Moorehead's students? I just think she would be tough. All right, back here. Enough of ripping on Agnes Moorehead. I know we got our Agnes lovers out there who just hate when I do that, but again, I'm not necessarily trying to rip on her. I'm just, talking about what we know about what kind of went down. So now Endora has turned Tony Devlin into a cat that matches her hair, but of course it's colorized, so who knows? But I'm guessing that would have been the right color. So Darren comes home and go, "Oh, look, a little cat just walked in." The meantime, the whole time, it's Tony Devlin. And the point here is supposed to be, in the story and in the script, that this is a very important client who Endora is convinced Darren is having an affair with, and to protect her daughter Samantha, turns her into a cat. So now all of a sudden this client isn't going to be showing up and all that kind of stuff. So here's what I find odd about, though, this script in terms of the A storyline and the B storyline. Unless you want to argue, you want to flip the A storyline and the B storyline, and the A storyline is really the Tony Devlin storyline, and the A storyline is the Tony Devlin, and the B storyline is Charlie Leach. I don't know. Well, what do you think? What's like if someone said, describe this episode, Tony? Would you talk about Charlie Leach or would you talk about Tony Devlin? Because that's pretty much how you know what the A storyline is. I would say, oh, Charlie Leach comes back and messes with them and steals a cat that Endora turns into a client. So because Charlie Leach is the first thing that came out of my mouth, it would be that. Okay, so Darren knows now. Darren knows that he's gone. That was Tony Devlin. I don't know if you can see the film grain. I don't know if you can see it way back here. Oh, I just get so excited about that with these high definition ones. Because again, look at this nightgown number 3, or is it? I don't know if it's a nightgown or a robe. I don't know. Let's just say bedwear, evening wear. I don't know what you call it. I just don't know the right names for things. But kind of low cut for the time period, I think. But then again, you got to look at I Dream of Jeannie, that was in black and white, and so what do I know? I just don't think you saw a lot of that stuff back then. But again, this is the early black and white days where Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, The Munsters, maybe, I don't know, maybe Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie were the really first ones to really push that stuff. I don't know. Can you think of any? Beverly Hillbillies, right? The daughter, she kind of had the top fallen out a couple of times, I'm guessing. I don't know. But I will bet it was super controversial back then. You know, just as today, we have a lot of people complaining about the violence and the guns and all things. Don't, and I actually never talked about the whole witch thing, but don't mistake back then. It was the same very controversial stuff. And Bewitched, you probably know this, but just in case you don't, was actually picketed, and there was a lot of protest back then by Christian groups and church groups saying, "How dare you do a story about Bewitched?" Which reminds me, I need to talk about the originations of their names, which I'll do in a second. Back to the storyline. So up till now, they think Tony Devlin just ran out the back door. The cat is missing. Now here comes Charlie Leach, A or B storyline, whatever you think, and he's going to say, "Oh, but I have the cats, and we can work out a little deal, and I'll get her back for you." And notice how Darren's looped into all this now. And Darren is, you know, he's basically saying, "Well, you use witchcraft," and now Darren's in a quandary. Should we let her use witchcraft, but we need to get it back, and what do we do with him? And of course, Sam always has his way with him.
$1 million? Are you out of your skull? Where would I get $1 million?
So he wants $1 million. You remember the
right?
what is that? The mini me one with Mike Myers. Not Ace Ventura. You know the. Oh gosh. Just so you know, it's like 9:30 in the morning when we're shooting this. My brain just isn't awake yet. That's why I'm coffee. Not that you need all this TMI information or to hear my excuses, but I just blank out and I say words wrong when sometimes when we shoot these too early. Anyway, do you remember he came back and he said, "I want $1 million," and everybody laughs. That's like not a lot. So back then, $1 million was a whole lot of money, though it might not be to us. I mean, don't get me wrong. Anybody would like $1 million. $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not like blackmail, tons of money, which they're trying to portray. All right, let's talk about their names. So she's making him a money tree. I can't give you $1 million. I don't have the power to zap up $1 million, but what I can zap up is a money tree that will grow money for you, and I think it's $100 bills. So every morning she's going to tell him that it will blossom $100 bills. Let's talk about their names, because I just learned this very recently. I had always known that Endora's name was based on the Witch of Endor from the Old Testament in the Bible. You've probably heard that too. You probably also know that most, but not all, most witches in Bewitched have an A, females have an A at the end of their name. Endora, Samantha, Tabitha, Hagatha, Enchantra. Who else can we do? Clara. The females, not the men, the females. There were exceptions. I should know them off the top of my head, but I don't. But I know you guys do. I could think of two. Tituba, the queen, that has an A. All right. The nanny. Elsbeth the nanny. Elsbeth was a witch. No A to the end of her name. Now I want to say Devlin because I can't think again. Remember when Maurice had a secretary who was a witch that ate a lot? Miss something else. Which also goes, a lot of people will say, this is another trivia question. If you ever happen to play Bewitched trivia, these stupid, idiotic things that I know. Do witches and warlocks have last names in Bewitched? The answer is yes, they do. How do we know that? And in one episode, Endora introduces herself to someone, and they say, "Endora, what?" And she says, "Oh, you can never pronounce it." One could argue she was just saying that because she didn't want to say, "I don't have a last name." But the basic premise and thought is, yes, they have last names. They're just weird. And, of course, then I go back to the secretaries, and a lot of people were named, again, Maurice's secretary was named Mrs. something. So apparently, if I remember, there are 3 instances in Bewitched where female witches, I guess that's redundant, where witches don't have I do to deserve this. I love that right there. I don't know. I love character actors where they don't have Ace's last name. So, where did Samantha come from? I wonder who knows this because I didn't. So, apparently, from something that I read, by the way, back in the storyline, she's going to turn Charlie Leach. Remember, there's a cat he's feeding milk to. He said, "You must feed the cat at exactly 10 a.m., whatever it is." And now she's going to turn Charlie Leach into a mouse, so the cat's going to chase Charlie Leach. So interesting the way they shoot this. Now, of course, see how the camera's shaking? That's how you, when there isn't any big drama and scary things going on, they're just letting the mouse run around. They're just letting the cat run around. But when you shake the camera like that, you create the feeling of drama and danger. So now she's going to change the cat back and he's going to know she got him. All right, so where did Samantha come from? I read, so the Witch of Endor is in the Old Testament book. There's a first and a second Samuel. It's in one of those. It's in Samuel. So I read that when they got the Witch of Endor for Endora, they took Samuel, and said, let's feminize that name and do Samantha. One thing that I don't know that you guys might know is, did the name Samantha exist before Bewitched? I should Google that. Or that's I have no idea. I've met Samantha since then. As a matter of fact, this is going to sound really weird. I was judging a beauty. I was asked to be the celebrity judge thing at this beauty contest just 2 weeks ago, and so they're like, it was a preliminary Miss America thing, and they're like in their 18, 19 or whatever, and here comes Samantha, a contestant named Samantha, and I'm thinking, quite obviously, she was named after Samantha. And I'm like, oh, so you were named after Samantha on Bewitched? She's like, who? Samantha on Bewitched. Were you told your name? I don't think so. She had no idea who Samantha was, nor did she even know if she's just 18, 19 or whatever she was, that was her name. But I don't know, did Samantha even exist before this, or did they totally invent that? Because if they totally invented that, then I'll believe the story about Samuel. If they didn't, I won't. But Endora's pretty true. That's pretty well known. And again, if you watch Bewitched Secrets #1 that I did, the very first thing that kind of went, just took off and did really well, Bill Asher gave me the original script, the pilot script, that he told me was the only one that exists. It was the second draft of the pilot script. He tells me it's the only one that exists. And still in that script, I think you might know, cheese ball, cheese ball, cheese ball. Really? That's a good, okay, so pause. Rear projection, no green screen back then, right? Looks a way better colorized than it would have back then. It would have just been real kind of blurry, and the contrast would have been hard to match the black and whites. But even still there, you see, I don't know if you know about contrast, but she has a lot of contrast, and behind her, it's all washed out. But even today, when you do green screen or anything like that, a lot of people don't realize that the way you do a good green screen is the contrast and the color balance have to match exactly, or it looks fake. So, in the original scripts, Samantha's name was Cassandra. Did you know that? I do show it in Bewitched. If I knew I was talking about that, I'd bring the script out. Though, if you really want to be honest, that script's like at the bottom of the drawer somewhere, and I don't even pay attention to it. Someday I'll appreciate it. So I always say, see where Endora is sitting here? You know when Endora goes to her witchly places, and they're like this, or she goes to get one of Samantha's old bows, and they're in these fancy places. Oh, she's going to do a spell over the phone. So, what does this tell us? Magic spell is all about the audio and not being present. And there's Tony Devlin curled up in her arms. Why did it do when Samantha, the few times she went home to Mother, why the cheese ball, cotton ball clouds? Why? Why couldn't it look something like that? I'm just asking. I'm just playing armchair quarterback. I'm just being super critical. But I always hated that, especially when the one with Tabitha and she's in the rocker that's on a cloud and you can seriously see the wires. And you can seriously see the wires. Like when she went to Juke. I love Juke. You know, we did the Flying Saucer episode. Did I even mention that was Juke, that one actor? He was in a lot of things. All right, so here we go. I really like the Charlie Leach ones, like a lot, where she goes and changes his apartment real nice and puts a car in there. Those are like, that's like one of my favorite Bewitched episodes. Why? Because there's big magic and a lot of magic, and everybody imagines something like that happening to them. So now he's going to show the $100 bills that came off the money tree, and oh, they're leaves. She screwed me again. Well, duh. Okay, so yeah, so I just think there's just, and even this, they're scripting it like, I'm gonna get you for this. You ain't seen the last of Charlie Leach. He says all that stuff, and she says, I haven't either. So it just leads me to believe there was more to come. So I don't know. Not a ton of behind the scenes stuff to talk about there. Sorry, that's my bad. Excuse me. But definitely one of my favorites. Cause a lot of magic. But I guess the most fascinating behind the scenes thing with that is what was their intention on keep bringing him back, and then she fizzles away. He fizzles away, kind of like Queen Samantha. Queen Samantha just fizzles away. It's like or how about Elsbeth and Annie? Speaking of that, when Elsbeth and Annie appeared, I'm like, oh look, a new character, and she was just in one and gone. So, and just so you know, I'll end here. There could be a lot of reasons for that we'll never know. They were difficult to work with. They didn't know their lines. They showed up late. They had other commitments, which is unlikely if they were considering them. They had probably started conversations. We're thinking of making you a regular. There could be a lot of reasons, but it's typically because the producers, as in Bill Asher or Liz said, I didn't like him. He smelled funny. It could be a million reasons why you watch something and go, oh, this is going to be reoccurring, and then it drops out. Sometimes you just never know. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. That's usually how it goes down. So that's it. Hope you like this one. Interesting Bewitched Chat Season 2, colorized black and white. One of my favorites, the Charlie Lee storyline. So, until next time, keep the magic in your life. Keep the magic in your heart. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.
I never thought my heart would be happy, but now I'm caught and I'm kinda glad to be.